My parents framed me and sent me to prison for 3 years over a lie I never told. They blamed me for the car accident that caused my sister-in-law to lose her baby, something I never intended. They thought this broken woman would stay silent, powerless, and forgotten behind bars. But they had no idea what was coming. I still hear my mother's voice in court, cold as ice, one life for another. My father nodded beside her, disappear for the sake of the family. My younger brother smirked from the witness stand. You owe her that much, sis. Every word was calculated, every tear rehearsed. They painted me as the monster who destroyed their future grandchild, all to take what was mine. I refused every single visitation request for 3 years. I didn't want to see their faces. I didn't want to hear another lie. The damp prison walls in Washington state became my calendar. With a broken fingernail, I scratched line after line on the concrete 195 marks in total. Tomorrow would be the last one. Tomorrow I walk out. The air in here smells of rust, regret, and waiting. But tomorrow the gates open and everything changes. Before I tell you how it all started and how it ends, drop a comment below and let me know where you're watching this from. I want to know who's listening to a woman's story of family betrayal and the price of truth. Tell me the moment someone you trusted turned their back on you. We're all here for the same reason, because some wounds never heal, and some debts get paid in full. The day I'm released is the day every lie starts biting back its owner. The final days in the women's prison in Washington state, just outside Seattle, dragged on endlessly. I sat on the cold metal bunk, the thin mattress worn through in places from years of use. With the jagged edge of a broken fingernail, I scratched another mark into the damp concrete wall behind the bed frame. Those marks were my only calendar, straight, even, emotionless. 1,095 lines. Tomorrow would be the last. Memories flooded back without warning, without mercy. I am Tasha Reid, the one who built Reid Cloud Solutions from absolutely nothing. It all started in my parents' garage in Bellevue with a second-hand laptop and an idea for secure cloud storage tailored to small businesses. I worked non-stop, skipping college parties, turning down weekend getaways. Friends begged me to join. At 25, I landed my first paying client. By 33, the company was publicly traded, valued at $90 million. I held majority shares, a portion from a trust my grandfather set up that I couldn't touch until adulthood, but most of it earned through sheer grind. I signed every major contract, represented the brand at every investor meeting. Cooper, my younger brother by 4 years, never accepted that reality. He was smart, charismatic, but impatient. Growing up, he was the one our parents spoiled because he was the son, the true heir to the Reid name. They always talked as if the company would eventually be his, that I was just holding it in place. I overheard those whispers through closed doors, caught the disappointed looks at family dinners when father gazed at me, wishing I'd been born male. Cooper never voiced it, but I felt his quiet resentment every time I announced record growth, every time a local tech magazine ran a profile calling me Seattle's rising female entrepreneur. He smiled, clapped, but the smile never reached his eyes. Then Delaney entered his life. She was beautiful, sharp, and knew exactly what she wanted. They married quickly after she got pregnant. Mother was overjoyed, finally a grandchild to carry the family line. She called me, voice bubbling, "Take Delaney to her prenatal checkup for me, honey. I'm tied up with Miles's school meeting." I agreed, as always. It was the duty of the eldest in the Reid family. That day the rain came down hard, the kind of relentless Seattle downpour that lasts for hours on I-5. I drove the company Tesla, Delaney in the passenger seat, hand resting on her belly. At first, conversation was light, baby names, nursery ideas. Then it shifted to business. Delaney asked out of nowhere. Cooper mentioned wanting to pull some capital for a side investment. What do you think? I kept my tone even. We're in the middle of expanding server infrastructure. Pulling funds now would tank the stock price, hurt every shareholder, including mom and dad's retirement accounts. Delaney smirked. You always put the company before family, don't you? Cooper's your brother. He deserves a bigger piece. The argument escalated from there. I tried to keep the car steady, but she wouldn't let up. She accused me of being selfish, of holding power just to prove something to our parents. Her voice rose, hands gesturing wildly. In the heat of it, Delaney suddenly lunged and yanked hard on the steering wheel. The car swerved instantly, tires hydroplaning on the wet pavement, clipping the guardrail with a jarring scrape. Airbags deployed, windshield spiderwebbed. I slammed the brakes, bringing us to a stop amid honking from surrounding traffic. I turned to her, heart pounding. "Are you okay?" Delaney clutched her stomach, face pale. Ambulance arrived fast. At the hospital, doctors confirmed she'd lost the baby. I sat stunned in the corridor, numb. But what followed turned shock into nightmare. Delaney told police I deliberately jerked the wheel in anger over the money dispute. Cooper stood by her side, holding her hand, looking at me with a mix of grief and resolve. Parents rushed to the hospital. Mother hugged Delaney, sobbing, then turned to me with a chill in her voice I'd never heard. Father said nothing, just nodded when officers asked about long-standing family tensions. Dash cam footage from the car vanished mysteriously. Later, recovery attempts showed files completely wiped without trace. My company and personal accounts were frozen under an emergency order Cooper filed, claiming risk of asset dissipation due to mental instability. Without access to funds, I couldn't hire private counsel. I got a young public defender overwhelmed with cases who barely reviewed my file before trial. The trial lasted 3 weeks at King County Superior Court. Parents took the stand as key witnesses. Mother tearfully recounted, "She's always been jealous of her brother even as kids." Father added, "Tasha controls the company too tightly, never gave Cooper a real chance." Delaney, in a wheelchair, abdomen bandaged, wept, describing, "The moment I felt the car deliberately veer toward the barrier." Cooper held, her voice breaking. "She grabbed the wheel, I'm certain." I testified calmly, recounting events exactly as they happened, but lacked physical proof. My public defender fumbled against the family witnesses. Jurors eyed me suspiciously, a successful businesswoman suddenly unstable. The judge sentenced me 3 years for reckless manslaughter plus a no-contact order with the company during incarceration. When the gavel fell, I didn't cry. Just an empty cold spreading through me. Helplessness that was all that remained. 3 years. 3 years for everything I'd built to be torn apart from the inside. The sharp click of heels and the heavier thud of men's dress shoes echoed down the prison hallway. I set aside the worn paperback I'd been pretending to read and waited. The guard's voice came over the intercom, "Final visitation approved." They entered the visiting room in a practiced group, my parents, Cooper and Delaney. Mother had chosen a navy dress with her favorite pearl necklace. Father wore the charcoal suit he'd saved for board meetings. Cooper's tie was perfectly knotted, his hair styled like he was heading to a photo shoot afterward. Delaney carried a small bouquet of lilies, her face arranged in careful sorrow. I lifted the receiver on my side of the plexiglass. Father spoke first, leaning forward with that familiar, authoritative tone he'd used when negotiating contracts. "Tasha, the documents are ready. You transfer majority voting shares to Cooper, and we stabilize everything. The company's bleeding cash with you gone." Mother's voice came next, softer, but no less calculated. "It's the only way to protect what your grandfather built. Investors are nervous. One signature saves jobs, saves the legacy." Cooper took the phone, his eyes meeting mine with the same intensity he'd shown on the witness stand. "Think about the bigger picture, sis. You've always said Reid Cloud was about more than any single person." Delaney placed her free hand flat against the glass. "After everything you owe the family, this." I held the receiver but said nothing. Then the door on their side opened again. Miles Reid stepped in, my youngest brother, 25, now the one I'd let go as CFO 18 months before my arrest over what seemed like minor discrepancies in quarterly reports. He wore a well-tailored gray suit, haircut short, looking more like a young executive than someone who'd been job hunting for years. He sat beside Cooper without a word to me at first. When he took the phone, his tone was even, almost detached. Family isn't always about who's right or wrong. Sometimes it's about who makes it through. His eyes flicked away from mine as he said it. I scanned their faces. Parents who'd taught me ambition, brother, who'd grown up in my shadow sister-in-law who'd joined the family 5 years ago, and felt a wall solidify inside me. "I'm not signing," I said clearly into the receiver. "Anything. Ever. Consider this goodbye." Father's expression turned to stone. Mother's hand flew to her mouth. Cooper gripped the phone tighter. Miles simply placed the receiver back in its cradle without reaction. I stood and walked away. Behind me, Mother's voice rose through the glass. "You're throwing away everything we worked for." The following morning brought Seattle's familiar overcast sky and light rain. The prison gates rolled open on schedule. Outside, a small crowd of reporters had gathered, tech journalists from GeekWire, a crew from Como News, even someone from CNBC who'd flown in overnight after the story broke about the Reid family drama. Cameras clicked as I walked out in jeans and a plain sweater, carrying nothing but a clear plastic bag of approved belongings. My parents stood at the front with Cooper holding white roses, faces arranged in hopeful relief for the lenses. Mother stepped forward, first arms open. "Sweetheart, we're so glad you're home." I kept walking, passed within arm's reach without breaking stride or meeting their eyes. The roses remained extended untouched. A sleek black Bentley glided to the curb. The rear door opened from inside. Ethan Harrison emerged, 34, Harvard Law, known for dismantling corporate fraud cases and never losing a boardroom battle. He'd declined Cooper's attempts to hire him 3 times in the past 2 years. "Ms. Reid," he said loudly enough for nearby microphones to catch, "your carriage awaits." I slid into the back seat. The interior smelled of new leather and subtle cologne. The door closed with a heavy soundproof thunk that muffled the sudden barrage of questions. Through tinted glass, I watched the scene shift. Reporters turned from my family to the car, shouting about who was picking me up and what it meant for Reid Cloud Solution stock. Mother's arms dropped to her sides. Father's jaw worked silently. Cooper stared at the Bentley license plate as if memorizing it. Ethan settled into the driver's seat he'd insisted on driving himself today. "Penthouse is ready. Team's waiting." I leaned back against the headrest, feeling the smooth acceleration pull us away from the curb. "Take the long way," I said. "I want to see the city again." The car merged into traffic. Behind us, my former family stood surrounded by cameras, their reconciliation photo op crumbling in real time. I didn't watch for long. Faint Seattle light filtered through the floor-to-ceiling windows of the penthouse overlooking Elliott Bay. I stepped inside the apartment that had been secured and stocked weeks earlier, the door clicking shut behind me with a finality that echoed in my chest. The air smelled clean, lemon polish, and fresh linens, nothing like the stale concrete I'd breathed for 3 years. I dropped the small plastic bag of prison belongings on the marble counter and headed straight for the bathroom. The shower had 6 heads rainfall and handheld all chrome and glass. I turned the water as hot as I could stand and stood under it for what felt like hours, scrubbing with cedar-scented soap until my skin was raw. The steam rose thick, carrying away the scent of institutional disinfectant clinging to my hair and pores. I watched gray water swirl down the drain and wondered if rage could be washed off as easily. When I finally emerged wrapped in a thick white robe, Ethan Harrison and Barbara Doyle were waiting in the living area. A mahogany table had been set up with neat stacks of documents, 2 laptops open, and a pot of coffee still steaming. Barbara, 61, silver haircut, sharp, former federal prosecutor turned corporate litigator, stood when I entered. Ethan remained seated, scrolling through something on his screen. "Welcome home, Ms. Reid," Barbara said, voice steady and professional. "We've got a lot to cover." I poured coffee into a real ceramic mug, my first in years, and sat across from them. The liquid was dark rich, nothing like the weak prison brew. It burned my tongue in the best way. Ethan slid the first folder toward me. Revocation of the emergency power of attorney your brother filed claiming mental incompetence. We challenge it on grounds of fraud and lack of medical evidence. Your signature here reactivates your majority shareholder status immediately. I signed without hesitation. The pen felt foreign in my hand, too smooth, too expensive. Barbara placed the second document in front of me. Emergency motion for forensic audit and temporary asset freeze. This goes to the King County Superior Court this afternoon. It prevents any transfer of company funds until the audit completes. I signed that too. Then came the resistance. Ethan's phone buzzed. He answered, listened, frowned. First National is pushing back. They're citing the existing hold Cooper placed and want 24 hours to review conflicting orders. Barbara's eyes narrowed. They'll get 4 hours. File the ex parte motion now. Judge Ramirez owes me a favor from the Meridian case. While Ethan typed furiously, Barbara reached into her briefcase and produced a small black USB drive. No label, just a single handwritten M in blue ink on the side. This is the backup copy, she said quietly. The original was destroyed, wiped clean from a server in Bellevue 17 months ago. It took our forensic team this long to reconstruct fragments from off-site backups and deleted email chains. Everything's here. Internal communications, offshore transfers, shell companies registered in Delaware. Enough to show systematic embezzlement. I took the drive. It was lighter than I expected. 3 years of someone's careful work reduced to 8 grams of plastic and silicon. Ethan ended his call. Motion filed, hearing in 2 hours. Bank will comply or face contempt. I plugged the USB into the secure laptop they'd provided. Files opened in neat folders, spreadsheets with dates and amounts, email threads between Cooper and unknown accounts, invoices for services that never existed. Millions siphoned slowly, carefully over years. My stomach turned not from shock, but from the precision of it. This wasn't impulse. This was planning. My phone, the new one Ethan had handed me in the car, buzzed with notifications. Social media tags, news alerts. I ignored them. Across town at the Washington State Convention Center, the annual Northwest Tech Summit was in full swing. 800 attendees in the main hall live-streamed to thousands more. Cooper stood on stage in a Navy suit mid-presentation about Reid Cloud Solutions' new enterprise security suite. The slide behind him showed projected revenue growth numbers I'd never authorized. He gestured confidently to the partnership announcement with Pacific Data Systems, a $50 million deal that would have been the company's biggest yet. The audience applauded as he invited their CEO on stage for the ceremonial signing. Cooper pulled out the company black card titanium unlimited limit and handed it to the waiter who'd brought champagne for the toast. The portable terminal beeped once. Declined. He laughed it off as a glitch, tried again. Second beep. Declined. The third attempt drew murmurs from the front row. His phone vibrated against his thigh. He stepped aside to answer, face still smiling for the cameras. Mr. Reid, this is compliance at First National. All corporate accounts have been frozen per court order effective immediately. No transactions until further notice. The color drained from his face under the stage lights. The audience shifted uncomfortably. Someone in the back started recording on their phone. The Pacific Data CEO paused mid-handshake expression, turning wary. Cooper tried to salvage it, joked about technical difficulties all around today, but the moment was broken. Partners exchanged glances. Investors checked their phones. Within minutes, Matka Reid cloud crisis trended locally. Back in the penthouse, I closed the laptop. The coffee had gone cold. Barbara gathered her papers. The freeze hits personal accounts linked to company funds too. Credit cards, lines of credit, everything. I nodded. For the first time in 3 years, I felt something approaching control. Ethan stood. We'll monitor reactions. Tomorrow we go public if needed. I walked to the window. Below, ferries crossed the gray water lights from West Seattle, twinkling in the distance. My city, my company, my life starting to come back piece by careful piece. The USB drive sat on the table like a small black bomb waiting for the right moment. Morning light filtered through the penthouse windows as Cooper's phone began vibrating incessantly on the bedside table. He reached for it, groggily squinting at the screen. 47 missed calls. Texts from his assistant board members, investors, all marked urgent. The first message from his executive assistant read, "Call immediately. Medical records leaked." He opened the link she sent. A scanned document from Swedish Medical Center dated 3 weeks before the accident. Diagnosis: spontaneous miscarriage due to prolonged work-related stress. No mention of trauma. Delaney's signature on the discharge papers acknowledging the loss. His stomach dropped. He scrolled further. The file had been submitted as exhibit in the emergency audit motion filed yesterday, then obtained by TechCrunch and the Seattle Times overnight. Headlines already live: Reid Cloud Solutions CEO's wife lost pregnancy before alleged accident. Questions swirl around founder's conviction. Cooper threw off the covers and stormed downstairs to the kitchen where Delaney was pouring coffee. She turned, smiling at first, then froze at his expression. "Is this true?" He shoved the phone in her face. Delaney glanced at the screen and set her mug down carefully. "Cooper, answer me. Did you lose the baby before the crash?" She crossed her arms. "Yes." He felt the room tilt. "And you let all of us testify that Tasha caused it." Delaney's voice stayed level. "You wanted her out. The company was slipping from your grasp. I saw an opportunity." "An opportunity." His shout echoed off the high ceilings. "You sent my sister to prison for 3 years over a lie." "Our lie," she corrected coolly. "You believed it because you wanted to. You needed her gone to take control." He paced the marble floor, hands raking through his hair. "The board's meeting emergency session today. Investors are pulling term sheets. That Pacific Data deal is dead." Delaney picked up her coffee again. "Then fix it. Deny everything. Say the records are forged." "They're not forged. They're from Swedish. Your doctor? Your signature." He stopped in front of her. "How could you look me in the eye every day knowing this?" "Because you never asked," she said simply. "You were too busy celebrating your new title." The silence stretched heavy between them. Outside, a news helicopter thumped overhead, circling the Bellevue neighborhood. Cooper's phone rang again, his father's name on the screen. He ignored it. "You're not the victim here," Delaney continued. "We both wanted the same thing. I just made it happen." He stared at her, really seeing the calculation behind the pretty face he'd married. "Get out." "What?" "Pack your things. I want you gone by tonight." Delaney laughed bitterly. "With what money your accounts are frozen too. Remember." He had no answer for that. Across the water in downtown Seattle, the Reid Cloud Solutions lobby buzzed with unusual energy. Staff whispered in clusters. Security had doubled at the doors. I walked into the executive conference room where a small press setup waited 3 cameras, half a dozen reporters from local outlets and Bloomberg. Barbara had advised keeping it short and factual. No emotions. I stepped to the podium in a simple black blazer, hair pulled back. Flashes popped. "Thank you for coming on short notice," I began, voice steady. "As majority shareholder and founder of Reid Cloud Solutions, I am announcing an independent forensic audit of all company finances, effective immediately. This audit will be conducted by an outside firm with full cooperation from law enforcement if required." Questions erupted instantly. "Ms. Reid, what about the medical records released last night? Is this related to your brother's management? Are criminal charges being considered?" I raised a hand. "Certain documents have come to light that raise serious questions about events leading to my wrongful conviction. The truth will emerge through proper channels. Until then, I am resuming my role as chairman. My focus is protecting this company and the thousands of employees who depend on it." One reporter pushed, Do you believe your family deliberately framed you? I met the camera directly. The evidence will speak for itself. Justice has a way of surfacing eventually. I stepped away from the podium after exactly 8 minutes. No follow-ups. Barbara escorted the press out. In the hallway afterward, Ethan handed me fresh printouts. Social media mentions were exploding. Stock had dipped 12% at open but stabilized after my announcement. Board wants an emergency vote on leadership transition, he said. Let them, I replied. We'll be ready. Back at the penthouse that evening, I stood at the window watching ferries cross the Sound. My phone showed missed calls from mother's number 23 in total. I didn't answer. The lies were unraveling faster than they'd been woven. And for the first time, I wasn't the one paying the price. Afternoon traffic hummed along the tree-lined streets of Bellevue as 2 moving trucks and a court officer's SUV pulled up to the gates of the sprawling estate overlooking Lake Washington. I stepped out of the black Escalade with Ethan Harrison at my side, the eviction order crisp in his hand. The house 6 bedrooms infinity pool home theater had been titled solely in my name since before my parents moved in 20 years ago, a premarital asset the court recognized without dispute. The gates swung open electronically. My parents, Cooper and Delaney, stood on the front steps, suitcases already packed at their feet. Mother clutched a small jewelry case. Father held a single garment bag. Cooper's face was blotchy from lack of sleep. Delaney kept her eyes on the ground. The court officer read the order aloud. Immediate vacation of premises, personal clothing and toiletries, only all furnishings and items purchased with company funds to remain. Mother broke first. She dropped the jewelry case and rushed toward me, arms outstretched. Baby, please. This is our home. Your father's health. Her voice cracked into sobs. Oh, my child. She whispered in the Vietnamese she'd used when I was small, the language of lullabies and bedtime stories. Father stood rigid, but his hands trembled at his sides. The man who'd built boardrooms and closed million-dollar deals couldn't meet my eyes. Cooper stepped forward next. Tasha, think about what you're doing. This will be all over the news. The company stock. It's already all over the news, I said quietly. Miles arrived then, pulling up in his Audi. He parked and walked up the driveway slowly, hands in his pockets. To anyone watching, he looked like the concerned youngest son trying to mediate. He placed a hand on Mother's shoulder. She's angry right now. Give her space. Then to me, voice gentle. Sis, maybe cool off a little. They're still our parents. His eyes held mine for a second longer than necessary, steady knowing. Cooper dropped to his knees on the stone steps. Miles talked to her. You're the only one she might listen to. My youngest brother looked down at him, expression unreadable. You made your choices, he said simply, then turned away. Delaney finally spoke, voice bitter. You're enjoying this, aren't you? I didn't answer. Neighbors had begun gathering behind the gates, tech executives, doctors, the kind of people who valued privacy above all else. But phones were out. Recording. A news van from Cairo 7 pulled up, camera rolling from the street. The movers began carrying out marked items, artwork purchased through company expense accounts. The custom Italian kitchen appliances, the home gym equipment billed as Executive Wellness Program. Mother sank to the steps, sobbing into her hands. Father finally moved to help her up, but his legs seemed unsteady. Cooper remained on his knees until Ethan politely suggested he stand for the officers. 30 minutes later, they stood outside the gates with 3 suitcases and 2 duffels. The only items they could prove were purchased with personal funds. The gates closed electronically behind them with a soft click. Across the street, a neighbor I'd waved to for years filmed on her phone. By evening, clips circulated on Nextdoor, then Twitter, then local news sites. Reid family eviction tech founder's revenge became the headline. I watched from the doorway as the trucks pulled away. The house felt suddenly empty, echoes louder. Miles lingered last. You okay? He asked quietly when the others were out of earshot. I nodded once. He squeezed my arm briefly, the only physical contact we'd had in years, then walked to his car. The sun dipped behind the Olympics, turning the lake gold. Inside, the movers locked up. I stood alone in the foyer that still smelled faintly of Mother's perfume, the silence heavier than any argument we'd ever had. For the first time, I wondered if revenge felt like victory or just another kind of loss. The boardroom at Reid Cloud Solutions headquarters in downtown Seattle felt heavier than usual, the air thick with unspoken tension. I sat at the head of the long glass table, the city skyline visible through the windows behind me. All 12 board members were present, some in person, others on video links from San Francisco and New York. No one spoke as they waited for me to begin. I opened the emergency meeting with a simple statement. We're here to address leadership and financial irregularities uncovered in the ongoing audit. Barbara Doyle stood beside me, projecting the first slide, a timeline of suspicious transactions dating back 3 years. The room shifted uncomfortably. The door opened. Miles walked in carrying a thick accordion folder, his expression calm but determined. He placed it on the table with a soft thud that seemed to echo. With the board's permission, he said, I'd like to present additional evidence. A few members exchanged glances. Miles had been invited as an observer. His shares from Mother's Trust gave him that right, but no one expected this. He opened the folder and began laying out documents, printed emails, bank statements, signed invoices for non-existent consulting services, offshore accounts in the Caymans linked to shell companies, payments to a private investigator who'd tailed me before the accident, bribes to the dash cam technician, small amounts routed through gift cards and cash apps. I started collecting this the day Tasha fired me, Miles said quietly. Those minor accounting errors weren't random. They were the first signs of systematic embezzlement. I pretended to stay neutral with the family to keep access. Every dinner, every holiday, I documented what I could. He met my eyes briefly. I chose her side that day. I just needed time to prove why. The room erupted in questions. One director from the venture fund demanded verification. Barbara confirmed the chain of custody, everything forensically imaged, timestamps intact. I let the discussion run for 10 minutes before calling for a vote. Motion to remove Cooper Reid from all positions effective immediately and refer findings to federal authorities. Hands rose one by one, unanimous. Cooper wasn't present. He'd been asked not to attend pending investigation, but his removal was official by the end of the hour. Months passed in a blur of depositions and discovery. The U.S. Attorney's Office in Seattle took the case: wire fraud, embezzlement, perjury, conspiracy. The federal trial lasted 6 weeks at the United States District Court in downtown Seattle. Prosecutors painted a clear picture: greed disguised as family loyalty. My parents took plea deals for reduced sentences, 18 months each, for perjury and conspiracy to commit fraud. They avoided prison time beyond what they'd already served awaiting trial, but lost voting rights in the company trust. Delaney testified against Cooper in exchange for probation and community service. Her role initiating the false accusation earned her 5 years probation and a permanent criminal record. Cooper fought hardest. His defense claimed everything was aggressive but legal business strategy. The jury didn't buy it. Guilty on all counts, 10 years federal prison, no parole eligibility for 7+ restitution of $12 million, the amount traced directly to his schemes. I sat in the front row every day of sentencing. Mother cried quietly when her name was called. Father stared straight ahead, face blank. Delaney wouldn't look at anyone. When Cooper's turn came, the judge recited the charges: embezzlement, wire fraud, conspiracy to commit perjury in the wrongful conviction of Tasha Reid. Cooper finally turned to me as the marshal approached to cuff him. His mouth formed my name, but no sound came out. I met his gaze without flinching. The confusion, the anger, the plea, it was all there. But so was mine. 3 years lost, a company nearly destroyed, trust shattered beyond repair. They led him away last. The courtroom doors closed with a heavy finality. Outside, reporters waited, but I slipped out a side exit with Barbara. The Seattle rain had started again, soft and steady. In the car, she asked if I wanted to make a statement. No, I said. The verdict speaks for itself. I watched the courthouse recede in the rearview mirror. Mixed emotions churned relief, emptiness, something close to grief for the family that no longer existed. But mostly resolve. The lies had their day. Truth finally had its turn. A year later, I sat in the visitation room of the Washington State Penitentiary in Walla, the plexiglass between us scratched and cloudy from countless conversations. Cooper looked different, orange jumpsuit hanging loose on a frame that had lost weight. Hair cropped short, eyes ringed with fatigue. He picked up the phone on his side with hands that no longer wore the heavy watch I'd seen in family photos. I lifted my receiver. He spoke first, voice rough. "Thanks for coming. I didn't think you would." I said nothing, waiting. "I know sorry doesn't fix anything," he continued. "But I've had time to think. A lot of time." He paused, searching my face through the glass. "Mom and Dad, they ask about you every letter. They want to know if you're okay." I kept my expression neutral. Cooper leaned closer. "The company's doing well. I read the quarterly reports the prison library gets. Miles is killing it as CEO." I nodded once. He swallowed. "I don't expect forgiveness. I just needed to see you, to say it to your face." I finally spoke, voice low and even. "There is no forgiveness. Not for you. Not for Mom or Dad. The blood tie is severed legally, emotionally, completely. I changed my name on every document months ago. You're strangers now." His face crumpled, but he didn't look away. "I transferred full ownership and control of Reid Cloud Solutions to Miles." I continued. "He's the only one who chose right over easy ethics over family pressure. He earned it." Cooper's knuckles whitened on the phone. "I deserve that." "Yes," I said. "You do." Silence stretched between us, filled only by distant voices in other booths. When the guard signaled time, Cooper pressed his palm to the glass. "If you ever—" I hung up without waiting for the rest. Walking out into the dry eastern Washington air, I felt the weight I'd carried for 4 years shift, not gone, but different. Lighter, perhaps. 3 years stolen. Youth that won't return. The stress of prison had taken its toll. Doctors confirmed I'd likely never carry a child, now the trauma too deep on body and mind. Trust in blood family shattered beyond repair. But refusing forgiveness isn't weakness. It's protection. It's choosing to guard what's left of myself instead of handing it over to be broken again. Greed can destroy a family from within, turning love into leverage, loyalty into liability. It starts small, resentment over shares, whispers about inheritance, then grows until people justify anything to get what they feel entitled to. True loyalty isn't automatic with DNA. It's chosen. Miles proved that risking everything to stand for what was right when it cost him the most. I drove west toward Seattle, the Cascades rising in the distance. The company thrives under new leadership. I consult when needed, but mostly I build something smaller, mine alone. Some losses are permanent. Some choices define us forever. But survival, real survival, means deciding who gets to stay in your life and who doesn't. And living with that decision unapologetically.